Paul Bledsoe is the president of Bledsoe and Associates, a strategic public policy, specializes in tax policy, energy, and of course, climate change. He's a senior fellow at the Climate Change at German Marshall Fund and also worked for the White House as well on this very important topic. President Obama has made it a very big topic as well. When you worked on it, President Clinton tapped you. What's changed in the last 15, 20 years?
I think we have a better sense of the actual impacts that warming temperatures around the globe are already having and going to have going forward. We're talking about record heat waves, droughts, sea level rise, forest fires, crop failures, water shortages. These are really serious economic as well as humanitarian problems. And I think the world leaders are finally waking up to the need to act.
Owen mentioned in his report that, and he insinuated it as well, that the poorest countries are going to be the ones that ultimately get hurt the most, whether you're in Bangladesh, you're in India, you're in Africa, these low-lying areas. What can those governments do? Because they're probably very limited in the resources. They can't build giant walls to protect the sea from rising.
Well, the largest emitters in the world, including China, the United States, EU, India, and others, have got to take responsibility for this problem. They are the largest cause of greenhouse gas emissions, which is the largest cause of climate change in turn. So they are responsible, and our hope is that we can reach an agreement in Paris next year through the UN process to reduce emissions appreciably over time and avoid the worst impacts of climate change. Because you're right, the poorer nations did not cause this problem, but they're going to be the ones who suffer the most.
We were talking earlier, you mentioned there were some recent developments with China on climate change.
Well, China and India. There was a new report just a few days ago from the Asian Development Bank, finding that if emissions are not reduced, the GDP of India will fall by 9% by 2100. China is beginning to recognize that there are significant impacts on its economy too, on its public health, on its water supplies and agricultural yields. And the Chinese are beginning to take action. They're talking about banning coal from the Beijing area completely by 2020. They're talking about pricing carbon, a whole series of efforts to get a hold of not just climate change, but also air pollution that is shortening the lives of Chinese, reducing that life expectancy in northern China by 5 years.
It's, I mean, this is a very broad topic, and we could go on and on. Now, some of the research, as we mentioned earlier, it's been the third warmest summer, at least here in the United States. At the same time, I don't see the public up in arms. I don't see people out in the streets saying, hey, this is a major problem, President Obama, please solve it. Or if you're in the UK, wherever country you live in, I don't see the citizens rising up. Is there a disconnect between the reality and building awareness?
I think there is. Things like Superstorm Sandy, the record drought in California, huge wildfires in the western United States are beginning to mobilize the American public. But I do think you're right that we need to educate the public much more on how this is going to affect their daily lives and also their pocketbooks.
And the big countries, I should say, that can do stuff. And I actually include companies as well, because countries and companies can both do their part. What's working out there in terms of policy, and what doesn't work? We've talked about cap and trade. There's been all kinds of plans in the works. You're the expert at this. What works best?
Well, the truth is we've got to burn fewer fossil fuels or capture those emissions. Those are the only two ways around it. So there's huge growth in renewable energy, but we need to invest more in breakthroughs on energy technology so that we can do things like store electricity. If we can store electricity, all of a sudden we can use renewables, store the electricity, and really reduce our use. The number one biggest problem globally is coal. If we burn all the coal available to us, we are going to have runaway climate change that is going to completely change the face of the global economy and the stability of nations. We simply can't burn all that coal. Now, what we may be able to do is capture and store the emissions over the next 20 or 30 years while we come up with new technologies. But that's how big a change we're going to have to make.
Yeah, I mean, this is a major change, not just for individuals, but also companies and initiatives to take. I apologize, we're out of time. Paul Bledsoe, president of Bledsoe and Associates. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Great to see you. Thank you for your thoughts.